The phrase crossing the Rubicon has become a cliché in our modern language. We use it to describe everything from changing careers to getting a tattoo. But to understand the true psychological weight of this moment, we have to look at the reality of January 49 BC. Julius Caesar was not just making a hard decision, he was staring at his own execution. The Roman Senate, terrified of his growing power, had ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome as a civilian. If he did, he would be prosecuted, stripped of his wealth, and likely exiled or killed by his political enemies. If he refused, he was declared an enemy of the state. He stood on the banks of the Rubicon River, the legal border of Italy. One step across that water with his legion meant he was committing high treason. It meant civil war. History tells us he stood there for hours, debating with his staff. He understood the magnitude of the gamble. He wasn't just risking his life, he was risking the stability of the entire known world. This is the definition of the existential bet. Most of us avoid risk because we fear the consequences of failure. Caesar embraced the risk because he feared the consequences of inaction more. He realized that safety was an illusion. In that moment, the safe option, surrendering, was actually the guaranteed death of his ambition. The dangerous option, war, was the only path that offered a chance of survival. Finally, he spoke the most famous words in military history. Alea Iacta Est. The die is cast. This phrase is often misunderstood. We think it means I have made my decision. But it actually refers to gambling. A die, once thrown from the cup, is no longer in the player's control. It is tumbling through the air, subject to gravity and fate. By saying this, Caesar was acknowledging a profound psychological shift, the transition from deliberation to action. The Rubicon mindset teaches us that there are two distinct phases of decision-making. Phase 1 is calculation, weighing the odds, fearing the worst, debating the strategy. Phase 2 is the throw. Once you cross the river, you must stop thinking about if you should have crossed it. You must switch entirely to how you will win. Regret, hesitation, and second-guessing are fatal once the die is in the air. Caesar didn't cross the river and then wonder if he should go back. He crossed it and marched on Rome with such speed that his enemies fled before he even arrived. He weaponized the momentum of his decision. He understood that in a no-return scenario, speed is your only ally. However, Caesar was not a mindless butcher. Once he seized power, he introduced a psychological strategy that confused everyone. Clementia, mercy. In the ancient world, when you won a civil war, you executed your enemies. Sulla, the dictator before Caesar, had filled the streets with blood. Caesar did the opposite. He pardoned the generals who fought against him. He embraced the senators who had called for his head. He famously said, "I will not imitate Sulla." Let this be a new way of conquering, to strengthen ourselves by mercy and generosity. This was not just kindness, it was a psychological power play. By forgiving his enemies, he humiliated them. He showed them that he was so secure in his power that he didn't need to kill them. He forced them to owe him their lives. This is the golden cage. When you kill an enemy, you create a martyr. When you forgive an enemy, you create a debtor. Caesar used gratitude as a chain. It was arrogant, it was brilliant, and it was a form of risk-taking that was even bolder than the war itself. He was betting that he could rule by love and admiration rather than just fear. But high-stakes gamblers eventually run out of luck. The same psychological trait that allowed Caesar to cross the Rubicon, his supreme confidence, became his blind spot. He dismissed his bodyguards. He ignored the warnings of soothsayers. He walked into the Senate house on the Ides of March unarmed, surrounded by the very men he had pardoned. Brutus and Cassius, men who owed their lives to Caesar's mercy, stabbed him 23 times. Why? Because mercy from a tyrant feels like an insult to a free man. Caesar had miscalculated the psychology of his peers. He thought they would be grateful. Instead, they were resentful of his superiority. The lesson of the Rubicon is double-edged. It teaches us the power of decisive action, of burning the boats and committing fully to the path. But the lesson of the Ides of March is that even the greatest risk-taker must watch his back. You can conquer the world by casting the die, but you cannot conquer human envy. Caesar died because he forgot that while he was playing dice with fate, the men around him were playing chess with knives. So, what is the takeaway for the Motivationairy? Life will present you with your own Rubicon. It might be quitting a steady job, ending a long relationship, or moving to a new country. Standing on the bank is the hardest part. The anxiety of the what-if can paralyze you. But Caesar teaches us that you cannot become who you are meant to be by staying on the safe side of the river. You have to accept that once the die is cast, the outcome is out of your hands, but the action is yours to own. Do not stand on the bank forever. Calculate the odds, take a breath, and cross.